welcome to whispers in the dark. What if the happily ever after was just a cover-up? What if the story you were told as a child was the version meant to keep you calm at bedtime, while the true version was the one nobody dares to say out loud? Because the truth is, Thumbelina was never a sweet little tale about a tiny girl finding her way to a prince. It was a story about being taken, passed from hand to hand, traded, kept, admired, imprisoned. A story about how easily something small becomes property. Tonight you are hearing the true story of Thumbelina, but with the ending turned back toward the shadow where it always belonged. So turn down the lights, put your headphones on, and listen. There was once a woman who wanted a child so badly that it became an ache that sat behind her ribs like a stone. She did not want a child in the vague way people talk about futures. She wanted a child in the way starving people want bread, in the way lungs want air. It was not a gentle longing. It was a hunger. Her cottage was small, and her days were quiet. She watched other women pass with infants on their hips. She watched children chase one another in the dust. She listened to laughter drift through her open window and felt as if the sound were meant to wound her. Finally, she could not bear the emptiness any longer, and she went to a woman who knew things. Some called her a wise woman. Some called her a witch. The truth was that she lived at the edge of town, where the path turned into rough grass, and the wind always seemed to carry a different smell. She sold remedies, yes, but also answers. And answers are often the most dangerous things a person can buy. The longing woman stood at the wise woman's door with her hands clasped, knuckles white, and said, "I want a little child, but I do not know where to get one." The wise woman did not laugh. She did not blink. She simply looked at the woman for a long moment, as if measuring how deep her need went. And then she reached into a drawer and produced a barleycorn. "Not an ordinary barleycorn," she said. It looked ordinary, small, pale, dry, the kind of thing you might find spilled from a sack. But the wise woman held it as if it were a pearl. "Plant this in a flower pot," she said, "and you will see what you will see." The longing woman paid without bargaining. She carried the barleycorn home in her palm like a secret, like a living thing that might bite her if she closed her fingers too tight. She filled a flower pot with dark soil. She pressed the barleycorn into it. She watered it carefully, and then she waited. Waiting is easy when you are hopeful. It feels like faith. It feels like the world preparing a gift. Days passed. Then something happened so quickly it felt like a trick of the eye. A green shoot rose. A stem thickened. Leaves unfurled like little tongues tasting the air. And then, at the top, a bud formed. It was larger than any bud should have been on such a plant. It swelled, tight and smooth, as though it held something inside that was pressing to get out. The woman leaned close, breath held, heart hammering. The bud opened, not into a simple flower, into something that looked like a tulip made of polished wax. petals thick and pale, the inside glowing with a soft warmth as if it contained its own light. And in the middle of the flower, sitting on a tiny green stool as if it belonged there, was a girl. She was no larger than a thumb. Her skin looked like cream warmed by sun. Her hair was fine and bright. Her face was delicate, and her eyes were so wide and clear they made her seem even smaller, as if innocence itself had weight. The woman's breath broke into a sob. "My child," she whispered, and because she had wanted this so badly, because she had paid for it with desperation, she did not stop to wonder what it meant to grow a person like a plant. She named the tiny girl Thumbelina. Thumbelina did not speak at first. She looked around with slow, careful movements, as if waking into a world too large to understand. The air smelled of soil and water and the woman's skin. The cottage creaked as the wind touched it. Somewhere, a fly buzzed like a low engine. The woman made a bed for Thumbelina in a walnut shell. She lined it with soft blue and white flower petals. She gave Thumbelina a leaf as a blanket. For a cradle, she used a polished piece of wood. For a table, she used a plate. For a cup, she used the curved shell of something small. Thumbelina ate from a tiny plate and drank from a thimble. At night, the woman would place her near the window where the moonlight fell, and Thumbelina would sleep in her walnut shell like a seed. The woman was happy, but happiness, in stories like this, is often a light that attracts teeth. One night the wind blew colder, and the woman pulled her blanket higher and listened to the small sounds of her cottage, the sigh of wood, the settling of the roof. Thumbelina slept on the table, in her shell, near the petals, near the leaf. Outside, something wet and patient moved through the garden. A toad, not a neat little frog from a picture book. A heavy, slick thing, skin lumpy as old bruises, eyes bulging with a shine that did not look friendly. It smelled the cottage. It smelled warmth. It smelled the sharp, clean scent of a living creature that did not belong to it. And through the crack of an open window, it heard something else, a tiny breath. The toad pressed its body against the wall and climbed with slow determination, sticking and pulling, until it reached the window ledge. It paused there, listening. Inside, Thumbelina slept. She looked like a perfect little doll, like a treasure, like something that could be taken. The toad slid inside. Its belly made a soft, dragging sound on the tablecloth as it crept forward. Its cold weight shifted. Its throat pulsed once, twice, as if swallowing a thought. "What a pretty wife for my son," it croaked under its breath. The words were not romantic. They were practical, possessive, a decision made without permission. The toad's tongue shot out, fast as a whip. It wrapped around Thumbelina's walnut shell. Thumbelina did not even wake fully before she was yanked from her bed and hauled toward the window. The walnut shell bumped and spun. The flower petals scattered like torn cloth. The leaf blanket slid away. Thumbelina woke with a gasp, confused, dizzy. And then she saw the toad's face looming above her, huge and wet. Its mouth curved in something like satisfaction. She tried to scream. The sound came out small. The toad did not care. It pulled her through the window into night air cold enough to bite. The garden blurred beneath her as she was carried low over the soil. Her walnut shell scraped against stems. Dew soaked the petals. A snail recoiled as they passed. Thumbelina clutched the edge of the shell with trembling fingers. "Where are you taking me?" she cried. "To the river," said the toad, and its voice was thick and smug. "My son will be pleased." Thumbelina's stomach twisted. The river was close, a dark ribbon under moonlight. It was not the bright, cheerful stream children imagine. At night, water looks like a moving hole in the world. The toad dragged Thumbelina to the bank, and then down, into mud that sucked at its feet. The water lapped with a sound like whispering mouths. In the middle of the river, there was a lily pad, wide and flat. The toad placed Thumbelina there, as if setting down a parcel. "You will not run away," it croaked. "You cannot." Thumbelina stared at the water around her. It was deep to her, endless. The current moved. The lily pad rocked slightly, making her feel sick with fear. The toad swam away, leaving a trail of ripples. Thumbelina was alone. She sat on the lily pad, knees drawn up, hugging herself. The night pressed close. The air smelled of algae and wet earth. A dragonfly passed like a needle with wings. Somewhere in the reeds, something splashed, and she flinched. Then she heard voices. Not human voices. Little fish swam beneath the lily pad, their bodies flashing silver. They looked up at her with round eyes. "What is that?" They whispered to one another in the quick language of water. "A girl," said one. "A tiny girl." "She looks afraid," said another. Thumbelina leaned over the edge of the lily pad, tears clinging to her lashes. "Please," she said, "please help me. I do not belong here." The fish circled. They could have ignored her. The river is full of creatures that mind their own business. But something about her smallness, her helplessness, the way she trembled on the leaf like a dropped petal, stirred them. The fish began to bite at the stem beneath the lily pad. Their little mouths worked fast. They tugged and gnawed. The stem frayed. The lily pad wobbled more violently. Thumbelina grabbed at the edge, heart hammering. With one final bite, the stem snapped. The lily pad drifted free. Thumbelina gasped as the current caught her and carried her away. The bank slid past. The reeds blurred. The moon reflected in broken pieces on the water. Behind her, far back now, she heard the toad croak in anger. A sound like a stone being crushed. But the river did not turn back. Thumbelina clung to the leaf as it traveled, her hair whipping in the wind, the water rushing beneath her like a living thing that might decide to swallow her if she slipped. And for the first time, She understood that she was small in a world that could kill her without noticing. She traveled until dawn began to pale the sky, and then the river widened, and the lily pad drifted near a bank lined with wildflowers. Thumbelina's leaf bumped gently against the shore. She climbed onto land, legs shaking, soaked and cold, but alive. She looked around. There were flowers towering above her like trees. Grass blades rose like spears. A ladybug crawled by, its shell gleaming. Thumbelina wanted to call for the woman who had planted her, but the thought of home felt suddenly far away, as if it belonged to someone else. She wandered into the meadow. At first, it seemed beautiful. Dew on petals like beads of glass, sunlight spilling over everything, bees humming, butterflies drifting. But beauty is not safety. Thumbelina found shelter under a big leaf and tried to rest. Her eyelids drooped, her breathing slowed, and then a shadow fell across her. She looked up. A big May beetle clung to the underside of the leaf above her. Its body was hard and shiny. Its legs were hooked and sharp. Its wings made a dry rattling sound when it shifted, like paper being crumpled. Its eyes fixed on her. "What a pretty little creature," it said, in the buzzing way insects speak. "I will take her." Thumbelina did not have time to run. The beetle reached down with its clawed legs, seized her around the waist, and lifted her into the air. Thumbelina screamed. The ground dropped away. The meadow became a blur. The wind roared in her ears. The beetle flew to a tree. To Thumbelina, the tree was a towering fortress of bark. The beetle landed on a branch and set her down. Other beetles gathered, drawn by the commotion. They crawled closer, their shells clicking softly, their antennae twitching. "Look," said the beetle who had taken her. "Look what I found." The beetles stared at Thumbelina. At first, there was a murmur of interest. Then the judgments began. The cruel little assessments that creatures make when they are deciding whether something belongs. "She has only 2 legs," said one beetle, disgusted. "She has no feelers," said another, as if it were a crime. "She is rather thin," said a third. And the way it said thin made it sound like ugly. The beetle who had taken her shifted uncertainly. He had wanted admiration. He had wanted to show off a prize. But now his friends, disapproval, crawled over him like ants. "She is not even like a beetle," they said, and their voices were sharp with the certainty of a crowd. Thumbelina stood trembling on the bark, trying not to cry. She felt their eyes on her like needles. She felt her own difference like a wound. Finally, the beetle who had taken her made a decision. He did not apologize. He did not feel guilt. He simply decided she was not worth the trouble. He carried her down from the tree and dropped her onto the ground. Then he flew away. Thumbelina lay in the grass for a long moment, stunned. The fall had not broken her, but it had shaken something inside her. A realization that kindness in this world was rare and attention was dangerous. She got up, brushed dirt from her dress, and began walking again. Summer passed. Thumbelina learned to survive among the wildflowers. She ate pollen, sipped dew, slept under petals. She used leaves as shelter. She warmed herself in sun patches. But even survival felt like being hunted slowly. When autumn came, the air cooled. The leaves turned. The flowers drooped. The nights grew longer, and Thumbelina's small body began to shiver more often than not. One day, as she was searching for a place to hide from the wind, she came upon a small opening in the earth. A hole. It was lined with dry grass and bits of root. Warm air breathed out of it, faintly smelling of stored grain. Thumbelina hesitated. Then a voice called from within, thin and sharp. "Who is there?" Thumbelina leaned closer. A field mouse appeared at the entrance, whiskers twitching, eyes bright. It looked old, but not weak. Its fur was neat. Its paws moved briskly. "Oh, you poor little thing," said the field mouse when it saw Thumbelina shivering. Come in. You will freeze outside." Thumbelina stepped inside. The hole opened into a tunnel system, neat and dry. The mouse's home was comfortable in a practical way. There were stores of grain. There were bits of straw arranged like furniture. There was warmth, the kind that comes from being underground where the wind cannot reach. Thumbelina's body relaxed with relief, and she almost cried with gratitude. The field mouse fed her, gave her a place to sleep, and spoke to her as if she were a guest. For a little while, it felt like safety. But then Thumbelina noticed something. The mouse's kindness was not free. It came with expectations. It came with ownership hiding behind hospitality. The field mouse liked to talk. It talked about neighbors. It talked about winter. It talked about what was proper. And often it talked about the mole. "He is very rich," said the mouse, smoothing its whiskers proudly. "He has velvet fur. He has many rooms. He is respectable." Thumbelina did not know what to say. The mouse went on, as if Thumbelina's opinion were irrelevant. "He is blind, of course," said the mouse, "but that is to be expected. He lives underground. He does not need eyes. He needs sense. He needs property." As the days shortened, the mouse grew more insistent. Thumbelina must visit, it would say. Thumbelina must be seen. Thumbelina must be grateful. One evening, the field mouse led Thumbelina through a tunnel to the mole's home. The air became cooler, heavier. The walls pressed closer. The sound of the earth above felt like a ceiling made of weight. The mole's door was a smooth stone fitted into the tunnel like a plug. The field mouse knocked. The stone shifted. The mole appeared. He was larger than the mouse, much larger. His fur was thick and black like polished darkness. His paws were broad and strong, built for digging. His nose was long and wet, constantly moving as if sniffing secrets from the air. His eyes were barely visible, small and dull, not made for light. He leaned down as if to inspect Thumbelina. To Thumbelina, he smelled of earth, roots, and something mineral, like old stones. "So this is the little one," he said, voice deep and muffled, as though spoken through soil. Thumbelina tried to be polite. She curtsied, because she had been taught manners by a woman who loved her, long ago in a cottage that now felt like a dream. The mole touched her gently with one paw, a gesture that might have seemed tender if not for how it lingered, how it claimed. "Very pretty," he said. Thumbelina's skin crawled. They ate together, the mouse chatting brightly, the mole occasionally making low, satisfied sounds. The food was good, but it tasted like obligation. Afterward, the mole offered to show them something. He led them down a tunnel that sloped into deeper darkness. "What is this?" Thumbelina asked, voice small. "A passage," said the mole. "I am expanding." The field mouse praised him. How industrious, how impressive. Then the tunnel opened into a chamber. It was colder here. The air was stale, the walls were damp, and on the ground lay a dead bird, a swallow. Its wings were folded awkwardly. Its feathers were dusty. Its head lay turned, as if listening to something it could no longer hear. Thumbelina's chest tightened. The swallow was beautiful even in death, its shape elegant, its beak fine. But there was no movement, no breath. The field mouse sniffed. "Disgusting," said the mouse. "Filthy creature. Birds are always crashing into things, always making noise. It must have died from the cold." The mole nudged the swallow with his paw. "It is lucky to be dead," he said calmly. "Flying about in the open air, it is foolish. Underground is safe." Thumbelina stared at the swallow. Something inside her hurt, sharp and sudden, like remembering a freedom you did not know you missed. That night, back in the field mouse's home, Thumbelina could not sleep. The winter wind howled faintly above ground, but down here it was muffled into a constant low pressure. Thumbelina lay in a little bed of straw, listening to the field mouse's breathing, and she kept seeing the swallow, not dead, alive, wings beating, sky above. The next day, Thumbelina returned to the chamber where the swallow lay. She told the field mouse she was going for a walk in the tunnels, and the mouse did not question her. It trusted the underground to keep her from escaping. Thumbelina brought a little bundle of dry grass and soft feathers. In the chamber, the swallow lay as before. Thumbelina knelt by it. Then she noticed something so faint, she almost thought she imagined it. A tremor, a tiny movement in the swallow's chest. Thumbelina leaned closer, holding her breath. Another faint tremor. The swallow was not dead. It was alive, but barely. Frozen, starved, stunned by cold and darkness. Thumbelina's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, you poor swallow," she whispered. She began to work. She cleared dirt away from the bird's body. She tucked grass around it. She used her small hands to pull loose feathers and make a soft covering. She warmed it as best she could, pressing her little body against its chest, sharing her heat like a candle pressed close to a dying wick. For days she came back, feeding it crumbs, bringing it warmth, speaking softly. The swallow's eyes opened a little. Its breath grew steadier. Its head lifted. Thumbelina felt hope flare again, dangerous and bright. When spring came, the earth began to change. Even underground, you can feel it. A slight softening, a faint shift of scent, moisture in the soil. The swallow grew stronger. One day, it fluttered its wings, and the sound filled the chamber like a sudden memory of wind. Thumbelina smiled so hard it hurt. "You will fly again," she said. The swallow looked at her with dark, intelligent eyes. "You saved my life," it said, in the clear voice of birds. "I will not forget. When I can fly, come with me. I can carry you away." Thumbelina's heart leapt. Away. The word tasted like sunlight, but the field mouse's plans were tightening like a net. "Soon," said the mouse one evening, "we will have the wedding. The mole has chosen you. What an honor. You will have a fine home, a fine husband. You will never need to go above ground again." Thumbelina's stomach turned. "I do not want to marry the mole," she said, voice trembling. The mouse's expression hardened. "Want is a childish thing," it snapped. "You will do what is sensible. You will be comfortable. You will be respectable." Thumbelina realized then that she was not a guest. She was a possession being transferred. As the weeks passed, preparations began. The mouse made little arrangements, stored food, spoke excitedly about the mole's wealth. The mole visited more often, his heavy body filling the tunnel, his voice calm and certain. "Thumbelina," he would say, and the way he said her name felt like a hand closing around her. "You will be mine underground, where you will be safe." Thumbelina began to feel as though the air itself were running out. When the first warm day arrived, the field mouse told her she must go outside with them to see the entrance to the mole's new home. "You will live there soon," said the mouse proudly. Thumbelina stepped onto the surface for the first time in months. The sunlight hit her like a miracle. The air smelled of growing things. The sky above was endless blue. Thumbelina's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from the shock of light. She wanted to run, but where could she go? Everything was enormous. Then a shadow passed over her. A bird, a swallow. It swooped down and landed nearby, feathers gleaming. Thumbelina froze. The swallow tilted its head, recognizing her instantly. It looked at her, then at the mole, then at the mouse. It understood. "Come," it said softly. Thumbelina's heart slammed against her ribs. She took one step. The field mouse snapped. "Where do you think you are going?" Thumbelina took another step, and her fear turned into something else, something sharp and desperate. The mole moved forward, and in one swift motion, he placed his broad paw over her like a lid. "Not so fast," he said. Thumbelina struggled beneath the shadow of his paw. her arms pinned, her legs kicking. The swallow fluttered its wings, alarmed. The mole lifted Thumbelina easily and held her close to his chest, where the smell of earth and darkness was overwhelming. "You will not leave," he said. The swallow hopped closer, beak open. "Release her." The mole's face turned slightly toward the sound. "Bird," he said, voice calm with contempt, "you belong to the sky. This is underground business." The swallow stepped nearer, bold. "She belongs to herself," it said. The mole gave a low sound that might have been laughter. "There is no such thing," he said. And then he carried Thumbelina back into the tunnel, while the field mouse scurried after, chattering about foolish birds and silly dreams. Thumbelina's stomach dropped as the light vanished behind her. The tunnel swallowed them. The air became cold again. The walls pressed close. That night, Thumbelina cried silently into her straw bed until her face ached. She thought about the woman who had grown her from a barleycorn. She thought about the walnut shell, the blue and white petals, the soft leaf blanket. She thought about how quickly a life can be stolen just because it is small. The next morning, the field mouse announced the wedding would be soon. Very soon. The mouse's voice was bright. The words were sharp. "The mole has arranged everything. You should be grateful." Thumbelina felt something inside her go still, a quietness that comes before a storm. She waited until the mouse was distracted. She waited until the tunnels were empty. Then she slipped away to the chamber where the swallow rested when it visited. The swallow was there, feathers sleek, eyes alert. Thumbelina ran to it, hands shaking. "Please," she whispered, "please take me now." The swallow lowered its wing. "Climb on," it said. Thumbelina stepped onto the swallow's back, gripping feathers. The swallow spread its wings, and then the tunnel shuddered. A low rumble, like earth shifting. The mole emerged from the darkness, moving faster than Thumbelina had ever seen him move. His broad paws silent, but unstoppable. "Going somewhere," he said. Thumbelina's blood turned to ice. The swallow beat its wings, trying to lift. But the tunnel ceiling was low, and the swallow could not gain height. The mole's paw shot out and grasped the swallow's wing. Feathers tore loose. The swallow cried out, a sharp, anguished sound. Thumbelina screamed. The mole pulled the swallow down, pinning it with his weight. "You do not take what is mine," he said. Thumbelina scrambled off the swallow's back and stood between them, shaking. "She is not yours," she cried. The mole's nose twitched. "You were fed in this home," he said softly. "You were sheltered. You were saved from winter. The mouse is my neighbor and my witness. Your debt is real." Thumbelina's eyes burned. "That was not saving," she whispered. "That was keeping." The mole did not answer her feeling. He answered her fact. "The wedding is tomorrow," he said. Then he lifted Thumbelina again, gently, as if the gentleness made the act righteous, and carried her away while the swallow lay panting in the chamber, wings trembling. Thumbelina did not see the swallow again after that. The next day, the field mouse dressed Thumbelina. It used bits of pale fabric, thin as petal skin. It placed a tiny veil on her head, woven from dry grasses and spider silk. It fixed little decorations, insisting she looked lovely. Thumbelina's hands shook. Her stomach felt hollow. The mouse led her through tunnels that grew smoother, wider. As they approached the mole's home, there were lamps, not of fire, but of glowing fungi, pale and cold, painting everything in ghost light. The mole's home was vast underground. There were rooms carved into soil and stone, lined with roots like veins. There were stores of grain. There were piles of soft moss. There were tunnels branching like a web. The mole waited in the central chamber. He looked polished, his fur brushed smooth. Around his neck was a strand of tiny white stones, like a collar. He leaned down to Thumbelina. "You will be comfortable," he said. Thumbelina's throat tightened. "Comfort is not freedom," she whispered. The mole did not care. The field mouse cleared its throat, acting like an officiant, speaking about propriety, about good fortune, about what Thumbelina owed. Thumbelina stood very still. Then the mole placed his paw over her hand. His paw was warm, heavy, final. The marriage was declared. There was no cheering, no sunlight, no birdsong, only the soft press of earth around them. Thumbelina felt as though the world had closed. That night, Thumbelina was brought to a small chamber prepared for her. The walls were lined with velvet like moss. The bed was a hollow lined with straw. The door was a stone that rolled into place. The field mouse said good night brightly, as if this were happiness. Then the stone shut. Thumbelina sat alone. Silence underground is different than silence above. Above, silence has space. Below, silence feels like pressure against your skin. Thumbelina touched the wall. It was damp. She listened. Somewhere distant, the mole moved, his digging a slow, rhythmic sound like a heartbeat. Thumbelina realized something then that made her breath catch. She was buried alive. Not dead, not yet, but placed into a life without sky, without seasons, without wind, without choice. Days passed. Thumbelina was expected to behave as the mole's wife, not in romance, not in tenderness, but in service, in presence, in fitting into the shape of a household that had already decided what she would be. She was instructed by the field mouse on what was proper. She was told to keep her tiny space tidy. She was told to sit beside the mole when neighbors visited. She was told to smile when spoken to. The mole spoke little, but when he did, it was always about the same thing. "You are safe," he would say. Thumbelina learned to hate the word safe. Safe meant trapped. Safe meant owned. Safe meant the slow disappearance of everything that made her herself. Sometimes Thumbelina would wake from sleep gasping, dreaming of the surface, dreaming of flowers and sunlight and the swallow's wings beating. She would press her hands to the ceiling of her chamber and imagine digging upward. But the soil above was thick, and her hands were small, and the mole's home was deep. One day, the mole took her on a tour of his tunnels. He showed her the passageways where he dug. He showed her his stores. He showed her places where the earth was firm and places where it crumbled. He spoke with pride, as if he were showing a kingdom. Thumbelina walked beside him, her small feet sinking into soft soil. Then she noticed something that made her stop. A thin crack in the earth above, where a root had shifted. A sliver of light filtered through. Not much, barely a blade of brightness, but it was enough to make Thumbelina's heart leap, like a trapped thing, seeing the door open. She stepped toward it. The mole's paw came down gently on her shoulder. "Do not," he said. Thumbelina looked up at him. "Why?" she whispered. The mole's nose twitched, as if tasting her question. "Because above is chaos," he said. "Because above you can be stolen. Because above you can be cold. Because above you can die." Thumbelina's voice shook with anger. "And here," she said, "I am not alive." The mole did not understand the difference. He led her away from the crack. That night, Thumbelina cried again, silent and shaking. But something changed. When you cry long enough, the tears stop being only sadness. They become something else. A pressure building behind the eyes, a need. Thumbelina began to watch. She watched when the field mouse left. She listened to the mole's digging schedule. She learned the timing of the tunnels. She learned which stones were moved often and which were not. She was tiny, yes, but tiny things can slip through cracks, and underground is full of cracks. One evening, when the mole was deep in his tunnels, and the field mouse had gone to visit a neighbor, Thumbelina crept out. She followed the tunnel toward the place where she had seen the sliver of light. Her heart hammered. Her breath sounded too loud in her ears. She reached the spot. The crack was there, still letting in that blade of brightness. Thumbelina pressed her face close. She smelled something she had not smelled in months. Air, real air. She pushed at the edges of the crack with her hands. Soil crumbled a little. She pushed again. A small clump fell away. The crack widened. Thumbelina's chest rose with hope. Then behind her, a sound, soft but unmistakable. A scrape. Thumbelina froze. The mole's voice came from the darkness, calm as a grave. "You are digging," he said. Thumbelina turned slowly. The mole stood in the tunnel, his black fur swallowing what little light there was. His small, dull eyes looked like stones. "I want to go outside," Thumbelina whispered. The mole moved closer, slow and steady. "Outside is not for you," he said. Thumbelina backed toward the crack, pressing herself against it. "Please," she said, and she hated that she sounded like begging. "Please let me see the sky again." The mole's nose twitched. "The sky is for birds," he said. "You are my wife." Thumbelina's hands trembled. "I am not," she whispered. "I never wanted this." The mole was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped forward and placed his paw on the crack, covering the light completely. With a slow, deliberate motion, he began pushing soil back into it. Thumbelina cried out no. The mole ignored the sound. He filled the crack until no light remained. Then he turned to Thumbelina. "You will stop trying," he said. Thumbelina's voice broke. "I cannot breathe down here," she said. The mole leaned close, and his scent filled her nose and mouth. Earth and darkness. "You will learn," he said. Then he took her gently, almost tenderly, and carried her back to her chamber. The stone door rolled into place. The darkness returned. Thumbelina sat on her straw bed, hands clenched. Something in her chest twisted into a hard knot. She realized the truth. No one was coming. No swallow would swoop down through soil. No wise woman would appear with another barleycorn. No miracle would open a door for her. And then, in the deepest quiet of her chamber, she heard it. A faint sound. At first, she thought it was her own imagination. A flutter, so soft it might have been a sigh. Thumbelina pressed her ear to the wall. Another flutter. Her heart leapt. It was not light. It was not sky. But it was something alive. Thumbelina began to search her chamber, hands skimming over the walls, feeling for anything, any crack, any place the earth was thinner. At last she found it, behind a cluster of moss. A tiny hole, barely larger than her thumb. From it came a faint current of air, and with the air a sound. A bird's breath. Thumbelina's eyes filled with tears. "Swallow," she whispered. From the hole came the faintest response, weak but real. Thumbelina. The swallow had found a way close to the underground. It had followed, searching, perhaps injured, perhaps stubborn, perhaps refusing to forget. Thumbelina put her mouth to the hole. "Please," she whispered, "please." The swallow's voice was strained. "I cannot get in," it said. "The earth is too thick, but I can wait. I can listen. I can carry you if you can reach the surface." Thumbelina's hands shook with hope. "How?" she whispered. The swallow was silent for a moment. Then it said, "Dig." Thumbelina stared at the wall. She was tiny. The earth was vast, but there was no other word. "Dig." So Thumbelina began, not with strength, but with patience. She used splinters of wood. She used sharp stones. She used her own nails until they hurt. She dug behind the moss, widening the hole bit by bit, always careful to hide her work, always smoothing the surface again, always pretending. Days became weeks. Thumbelina's fingers bled sometimes. Her arms shook with exhaustion, but she dug. At night, she would whisper to the swallow through the hole, and the swallow would whisper back, telling her about the sun, about the wind, about flowers beginning to rise again. It fed her hope like bread, but hope is loud. Even when whispered, it echoes in the heart, and the mole began to notice. Thumbelina grew thinner, quieter, more focused. The mole mistook it for obedience at first. and that made his voice satisfied. "You are settling," he said. Thumbelina smiled faintly and said nothing. Then one day, the field mouse entered Thumbelina's chamber and sniffed. "What is that smell?" it demanded. Thumbelina's blood turned cold. "Above air," said the mouse, suspicious. Thumbelina tried to steady her voice. "It is nothing," she said. The mouse's eyes narrowed. The field mouse began to pull at the moss. Thumbelina lunged, trying to stop it. The mouse shrieked and jerked back. It tore the moss away. The tiny hole was exposed. A whisper of air came through. The mouse's face twisted in disgust and fear. "Bird air," it hissed. "Outside air." Thumbelina's heart hammered. The mouse backed away. "The mole must know," it said. "The mole must stop this." Thumbelina's voice rose, desperate. "Please," she begged. "Please do not tell." The field mouse stared at her, and for a moment something like pity flickered. Then it was gone, replaced by propriety. "You are ungrateful," it said coldly. "You were saved. You were married well. You will not ruin this home." It fled to tell the mole. Thumbelina stood shaking, staring at the hole. She could hear the swallow faintly on the other side. "Thumbelina," it whispered urgently. "Hurry." Thumbelina did not hesitate anymore. She tore at the earth with frantic hands, widening the passage, pushing soil away, letting it fall. Her breath came fast. Dirt filled her nails. Her arms burned. Behind her, she heard the heavy sound of the mole moving through the tunnel. Closer, closer. Thumbelina dug faster. The hole widened enough for her to squeeze through, but only barely. Light did not pour in. Not yet. Only air, real air, rushing like freedom. The mole's shadow filled the chamber behind her. "Thumbelina," he said, and his voice was low and calm, which was somehow worse than rage. Thumbelina did not turn. She shoved herself into the hole, scraping her shoulders, tearing her dress, forcing her body through earth that resisted. The mole lunged. His paw grabbed at her ankle. Thumbelina screamed. The swallow's voice cried from the other side, "Hold on." Thumbelina kicked, fighting with everything she had left. The mole's grip tightened. "You will not leave," he said. Thumbelina's ankle burned with pain. Then something happened. The soil above shifted. A crack, a sudden burst of light stabbed through, thin but blinding. The swallow had opened the surface from above, tearing at roots, pulling at loose soil, widening the escape. The light poured down like salvation. Thumbelina cried out as the air surged. She pushed forward. The mole pulled. For a moment, she was caught between two worlds. Then her foot slipped free. Thumbelina tumbled out into daylight. She fell into grass, coughing, gulping air that tasted like life. Above her, the swallow swooped down, wings wide. "Thumbelina," it cried. Thumbelina climbed onto its back, sobbing. The swallow beat its wings and lifted her into the sky. Below, the earth hole yawned like a mouth. For one bright moment, Thumbelina thought she had escaped. Then the ground below moved. The mole emerged, not fully, but enough to show his head, his paws. He could not climb into the light for long, but he could watch. And he did. He watched the swallow rise. He watched Thumbelina cling to feathers. He watched freedom lift away from his tunnels. And then, very softly, almost kindly, he said something that made Thumbelina's blood turn cold, even from the sky. "You cannot fly forever," he said. Thumbelina stared down. The mole's small, dull eyes did not blink. "You are small," he said. "The world is large. It will take you again." The swallow rose higher, faster, as if trying to outrun the words. Thumbelina pressed her face into the swallow's feathers, shaking. They flew far, over fields, over rivers, over forests. Thumbelina began to believe again, because the sky makes you believe. But the swallow's wing was injured from the mole's grip. It did not fly with perfect strength. It grew tired sooner than it should have. Night fell. The swallow searched for rest. They found a place that looked safe, a hollow in a tree, sheltered from wind. Thumbelina curled inside, exhausted. The swallow settled beside her, breathing hard. "We will continue in the morning," it whispered. Thumbelina closed her eyes, and then she heard it, a soft scratching, not in the tree, below, in the ground. Thumbelina's eyes opened. The hollow was quiet, but the sound continued, faint and rhythmic. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Thumbelina's stomach dropped. The swallow lifted its head, listening, feathers bristling. "What is that?" Thumbelina whispered. The swallow's voice was tight. "I do not know," it said, "but I do not like it." The scratching stopped. Silence. Thumbelina held her breath. Then, from the earth beneath the tree, a faint tremor ran through the roots. Thumbelina felt it under her hands, like a pulse, and she understood. The mole did not need to follow in the sky. The mole followed underground. Tunnels do not care about borders. They do not care about distance the way feet do. A mole with patience can travel like a dark thought through soil, arriving where you least expect. Thumbelina began to shake. The swallow spread its wings, trying to rise, but fatigue made the motion slow. Then the ground below erupted, not with a dramatic explosion, but with a sudden crumbling, soil collapsing as if something had hollowed it out. A black head appeared. The mole. He had found them. He pulled himself up just far enough to reach the tree hollow with his long paws. Thumbelina screamed. The swallow flung itself forward, wings beating, trying to block. The mole's paw slammed down, pinning the swallow's wing to the wood. Feathers burst. The swallow cried out in pain. Thumbelina backed into the corner of the hollow, trembling. The mole's voice was calm. "I told you," he said. "The world will take you again." Thumbelina's mouth opened, but no words came. The mole reached in and grasped her gently, as if lifting something precious. Thumbelina kicked, clawed, bit. The mole did not tighten enough to hurt her badly, because he wanted her whole. He wanted control, not damage. The swallow screamed her name. Thumbelina reached toward it, tears streaming. The mole pulled Thumbelina down, down into the hole, down into earth. The light vanished behind them. Thumbelina's screams became muffled by soil. The swallow's cries faded above, trapped in air that could not reach into tunnels. The mole carried Thumbelina through darkness that felt like swallowing. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time underground is a trick. Finally, they reached the mole's home again. The field mouse waited, wringing its paws. "Oh dear," it said, trying to sound pleased. "Oh dear, there you are. This is for the best." Thumbelina stared at it, with hatred so sharp it felt like heat. The mole did not speak to the mouse. He carried Thumbelina directly to her chamber. The stone door rolled into place. This time, Thumbelina heard something new. A grinding sound. The mole was sealing the door, packing earth, setting stones, turning the entrance into a wall. Thumbelina rushed to it, pounding with tiny fists. "No," she cried, "no." The mole's voice came through the stone, muffled, final. "You will not leave again," he said. "You will be a proper wife." Thumbelina's breath came in broken gasps. She sank to the ground. The chamber felt smaller now, as if the walls had moved closer. Thumbelina pressed her ear to where the door had been. Silence. No more movement. No crack. No air. Only the smell of damp earth and moss. Days passed. Thumbelina tried to dig again, but the walls were packed tighter, reinforced. Her fingers broke nails and found only stone. She cried until she could not cry anymore. The field mouse brought food, speaking brightly, insisting Thumbelina should be grateful. The mole visited occasionally, speaking in calm tones about safety, about comfort, about how she would stop struggling eventually. Thumbelina stopped answering. She began to conserve her strength, but not for escape, for something else, for endurance. When you cannot leave, you begin to change. Thumbelina's skin grew paler without sun. Her eyes grew sensitive. Light from fun guy made her squint. Darkness became normal. The smell of earth became familiar. The sound of digging became like weather. The mole seemed pleased. "You are adapting," he said. Thumbelina stared at him, and her voice came out small and flat. "I am disappearing," she whispered. The mole did not understand the meaning. He only heard quiet, and he mistook quiet for acceptance. The forced marriage did not become love. It became a life underground, a life where Thumbelina was dressed in tiny fabrics the mouse sewed, made to sit beside the mole when neighbors visited, made to smile, made to be displayed like a strange, delicate possession. The mole would sometimes stroke her hair with his paw and say, "You are mine." And the words were always said with the calm certainty of ownership. Thumbelina learned the map of the tunnels. She learned where fungi grew. She learned how to make herself small in ways that were not physical. She learned how to speak only when spoken to, and slowly, the story that would later be told above ground began to form. People above spoke of Thumbelina as a girl who escaped, as a girl who found a prince among flowers, as a girl who flew away on a swallow. Perhaps someone heard the swallow's cries and invented an ending kinder than the truth. Perhaps the woman who had planted her could not bear to imagine what happened, and so imagined something else, because the real ending was too cruel for bedtime. The real ending was that the mole got what he wanted, not because he was stronger in the way of claws and teeth, but because he was patient. Because he lived where escape routes collapse. Because he understood that the world is built to trap small things. Thumbelina did not die. That would have been mercy. She lived in velvet dark, in damp air, in a home that was safe in the way a coffin is safe from weather. Sometimes, when the tunnels were quiet and the mole was far away, Thumbelina would press her hands to the earth wall and imagine she could feel sunlight on the other side. She would close her eyes and remember flowers taller than herself, dew like glass, the sound of wings. And in those moments, she would whisper a name like a prayer. Swallow, but prayers do not always reach underground. Above, spring returned as it always does. Flowers opened, birds sang, the world moved on, and deep beneath it, Thumbelina sat very still, listening to the slow, steady digging that never stopped, the sound of the mole expanding his kingdom, the sound of earth closing in around every dream, because that is the true terror of this story. Not monsters with claws, but a world where kindness becomes a cage, where safety is used as a leash, where something tiny is told it should be grateful for being kept. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this dark retelling of Thumbelina, like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment with the next fairy tale you want to hear in its darker form. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment so